Hey guys, I hope you're doing well and hanging in there with all that's been going on, these hard times. Today I wanted to give you some tips, 10 steps with tips and some resources for reopening your clinic after COVID. I know many people have already done this, but a lot of people haven't yet and are thinking about it and in the process. And I just opened on June 1st this week. I'm filming this on Thursday. I opened up on Monday. So we're back open and running and it feels really, really good. But I do know that the past couple weeks as I was preparing to open were really stressful and there's a lot to think about and a lot to research. So if I can help others that with any of that, then I want to. So that's why I've put this together for you. I have a PowerPoint, so I'm going to share my screen with you because I think visuals are really helpful. Okay. Cool. Let's focus that screen. Great. So 10 steps to reopening your acupuncture clinic. So first one. First, research the laws, recommendations, and guidelines in your state and your city. So you want to just know like when you're allowed to open. This was actually confusing in Denver because we had a city stay-at-home order that ended at a different time than the state stay-at-home order. So that was one thing to research, like when you can go back to work if you were not considered essential ever. And also look at the guidelines I would research like the CDC recommendations and your acupuncture state association. A lot of them have put together great presentations sharing with you some guidelines for how to reopen safely. So it is important to know, I think that many of those, to understand the difference between laws and requirements and guidelines. So a lot of the guidelines from your state organization, they're not a body that actually like governs us, but they're making recommendations. So you don't have to, I think there was confusion there. But for example, they recommended, the AAC, the Acupuncture Association of Colorado, recommended that we wear gloves for treatment. It's not a requirement. It's not a law. It's a guideline. And that's an important distinction, and that you can look at those guidelines, look at the laws, make sure you're complying with the CDC and the laws. But as far as your state association guidelines, I think we should be able to use our head and weigh the risk and benefits and do what we are comfortable with, as long as we are within our state and CDC requirements, right? Okay, I will link to these. I have the Council of Colleges of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine, the CCAOM, Clinic Infection Control Advisory, this big handout with recommendations. I will link to this. I will link, I know you might not be in Colorado, probably aren't, but in case your state association hasn't put together anything really supportive for you, I found the Acupuncture Association, their town hall, their best practices for reopening. This was really helpful. And I'll share this link to this YouTube video. But I also, if you don't have 2 hours to watch that video, I get it. I also just found their slides. Here's a link to just their slides to be really helpful too. So you can just quickly look through those and get the information you want versus having to listen to that whole 2-hour thing. So those are some guidelines or some resources that I will link to in case they're helpful for you. Okay, so that's the first step, is figure out like when you are legally allowed to open, the laws you have to comply with. Okay. Then taking all of that at your state and local and CDC guidelines, take that and create your own safety policies for your clinic. I recommend creating a document and writing down what your like screening and sanitizing and safety policies will be, and writing it down. They also recommend that you hold a safety meeting if you have a team of associates and staff, and that you kind of document that and say who was there and stuff. So, but at the very least, definitely write down your new policies. And I will share with you what I thought was helpful. The Acupuncture Society of New York reopen guidelines. I thought that this New York one was super helpful because they have examples of like spreadsheets to track like this. So you can, I thought this was kind of helpful, these examples. So I will share that with you in case that's also helpful. My safety policies is just a Word document where I say things like, we're going to screen people for temperatures and we're not allowing it above this degree. And we're going to, here's everything you have to, here's all the questions we're going to ask. And here's how we're changing our treatment rooms, removing the fleece table covers and, all those things and what we have to clean between each patient. So I would write out a document for your policies, having done the research in step 1 for all the guidelines and recommendations. Distill it down to what feels right for you and your clinic, making sure that you're complying. Okay, next, research your malpractice insurance. Because as far as I know, CMNF and the AAC insurance companies both are requiring acupuncturists to have their patients sign a consent form. Actually, I don't know if they're requiring, but they are recommending at least that we have our patients sign a form. So I will link to this, which is here, was really helpful from the American Society of Acupuncturists, a patient consent form for the AAC and a different patient consent form for CMNF. And you, if you have a different malpractice insurance company, I recommend contacting them and asking them if you need to have a consent form signed. The AAC one just requires that, from what I understand, patients sign it once. CMNF wants your patients to sign it every single time they come in. So you can either download and print and have your patients sign those exact forms, or you can take those forms and then rebrand them and recreate them with your kind of like logo and branding if you want. Okay. So make sure you've contacted your malpractice insurance and know whether you need to have an extra form signed. Okay. Next is getting supplies. I actually found this quite stressful at first as all through May, as I was preparing to open up on June 1st, I felt like I found it was hard to find masks, and I would buy them off of Blue Poppy and they'd be like sold out the next day. And I was like, okay, so I have 50 masks. How long will that last me? I don't want to reopen and not know that I like have the supplies to stay open. I recommend that you have enough supplies for at least 2 weeks, but I wanted longer just to ease my own anxiety. So I stocked up on, first I had to find a thermometer to screen people's temperatures, which took like 3 to 4 weeks to come in the mail and was kind of hard to find. Eventually it came. So you need a touchless thermometer, or you don't have to have touchless, but because you can just sanitize between every patient if you're doing like an ear one or something. But I'd recommend the touchless. You need masks for yourself, and you do need to have masks available. From what I understand, at least this is true in Colorado. We need to have masks available if patients forget to wear theirs or don't wear theirs. So masks for yourself and your patients if needed. So far, every patient of mine has shown up with a mask, and I haven't needed to supply one to them. Sanitization spray and wipes and hand sanitizer. So I recommend that you check the EPA list of approved sanitizers for COVID. And I will link to this. Here it is, the EPA disinfectants for use against COVID. And there's this huge list. You can also search by name. So what you want to make sure that whatever you're spraying your table with and using to clean your surfaces, that it's approved for COVID. I spent some time researching it because I also wanted ones that were non-toxic. I will share what I learned with you. What I learned is hydrogen peroxide is approved. And so I bought it in a spray bottle form, but it does have a wait time. Most of these products have like a 10-minute wait time. So you spray it till it's wet, and then you have to let it just naturally dry for 10 minutes in order for it to be effective. So hydrogen peroxide is one, and the other one I really liked is called Force of Nature. I will link to this too. It's non-toxic, and it also does have a dry time, and it's EPA approved. So in case that helps you, yeah. And I've been able to easily find, this took weeks and weeks to come, the Force of Nature. But the hydrogen peroxide I've been able to find at both Walgreens and at my local Whole Foods. It's been really easy to find hydrogen peroxide. Yeah, so that's what I'm using on my like porous surfaces, like my treatment table. I'm using my normal sheets I always use and washing them with after every patient. But I've removed, like the table warmer and the fleece pad so that I'm spraying the table between patients. So you need to use a spray. From what I understand, for porous substances, those like wipes won't really cut it, but you can use wipes for like your table surfaces and pens and doorknobs and stuff like that. So another resource I want you to know about is, because I thought it was hard to find masks and wipes, I signed up for an Amazon Business Prime account. Really easy to get signed up. And now I have access, see up here, it says priority COVID-19 supplies. And I can have, here's a list of things I bought, vinyl pillowcases. But you can have access to things like masks, gloves, Purell wipes, if you want to use those, things like that. So, and touchless thermometers. So you have priority, I guess, access to COVID-19 supplies, not priority above frontline healthcare workers, but still somewhat priority with a business Amazon Prime account. Okay. Yeah, so those are the resources I wanted to let you know about, because I found this stressful researching the supplies, right? So hopefully that helps you. Okay. Next is choose a starting date. So this should not only reflect, of course, your laws, whether you're allowed to practice, but you don't have to start as soon as you are allowed to. I think I was allowed, it was confusing, but I was allowed to start practicing May 8th, and I waited till June 1st, partially because I wanted to do all this research and create a thorough safety and cleaning policy and make sure I had all my supplies. And it took weeks for some things to come. So I waited until I felt really ready. I also emotionally didn't feel ready. It felt hard for me to go from like staying at home with my toddler for 10 weeks to like jumping back into working. I'm surprised I felt that way, because it was so hard for me to stop working back in March. I was like, you want me to cancel like hundreds of patients? And it was so hard for me. But then it was also hard for me emotionally, energetically, to like get started again. So reflect on what feels right for you. You could also reflect on what feels right for your patients. You could email your patients either a Survey Monkey or a Google form to ask them if and when they feel ready to come back to see you. I recommend keeping it short and sweet, like 2 to 3 questions. Don't take up too much of their time. Email them and say, hey, we're thinking about opening. Can you take 2 minutes and answer these questions? And it could be like, do you feel ready to get in ASAP? Are you, not quite ready yet? You can get a feel for also what your patients are thinking. It might be helpful. I didn't do this, but I know some acupuncturists did do this, and I think it's a smart way to go. I felt like I had been in touch with my patients, that I knew that I had a lot of patients who were anxious and excited to get back in. Okay. Next step is to choose your schedule. So, and what I mean by this is you're probably not going to open up back up at the same capacity as you were operating at before COVID. Our requirements here in Colorado are, and the language is confusing, are, because a lot of acupuncturists are saying we have to work at 50% capacity. My husband, who's a lawyer, looked at the language and he said it's technically 50% occupancy, which technically means something different. But so I find that vague. But I'm operating at 50% capacity. So that, and the main reason is not just because of a capacity or occupancy requirement, but because of that dry time to sanitize, I need to leave a room empty for 30 minutes after using it in order to spraying it down and wiping it down doesn't take much time, but you have to allow the time to let it dry. I also am trying to not have people cross in the waiting room. So I'm working at a way lower capacity. And you want to choose your schedule so that you're abiding by those safety standards, right? And making you and your staff comfortable, taking into consideration dry times, and think about that. And then once you choose your schedule, make those adjustments in your online scheduler if you have one. For example, I went into mine and made it so that if a patient books, the scheduler books out 30 minutes after every appointment, so that people aren't going online and booking appointments and like not following my new guidelines, right? So make sure you put it into your online scheduling. And because of that, I added a day. I'm now working 3 days a week instead of 2 days a week, so that I can get all my patients in with my lower capacity. Okay, next up is to make your new policies public. So you want to put those details of your new screening and safety procedures, all the ways you're keeping people safe. You want to put that in a few key places. You want to put it on your Schedule Now page so that people see it right as they're scheduling an appointment. This is important because you want them to know, wear a mask to your treatment, and if you don't want them to enter your waiting room, and you want them to wait in their car or something like that. You want them to know and before their appointment. I also put it in my email confirmation reminders that go out automatically for people's appointments, just to remind them again, 24 hours and then 1 hour ahead of their appointment. And I can maybe show you an example of this. Yeah, so on my Book Now page, I put in a COVID-19 update. And I talked about all the things I'm doing to keep them safe. Please wear a face mask. We're going to take your temperature, blah, 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 all this stuff. So this has a couple goals. It is to remind them of what I need them to do, right? But also I want to make people feel safe. So this is a big step for reopening, is you want to let people know your new policies, not to bore them. These are not my whole policies. I have way more policies than what you see here. But I don't want to bore people with my huge long list of every single thing we're doing. But here are some key things that I think will make people let people know that we're really keeping them safe, right? So that's what you really want to convey. It's not just dude, wear a mask and don't come in if you're sick, have these symptoms and stuff like that. But also, we're really doing our best to optimize your safety, and you are in good hands with us. I think that's a really key thing you want to do right now. Okay. So you're putting them, you're making your policies public. Then a week before you open up, get the word out that you're opening up. I recommend emailing your list of patients and include a call to action button to schedule with you. That's really important. Don't miss that step. Make it really easy for people. Customer service is important. Don't make people go through an added step to book with you. Give it to them right then and there. Just click this button, easily schedule. And also in that email, give them details about all the steps you're taking to keep them safe. And then also share on social media that you're opening up, and the steps you're doing to keep people safe. So I will share mine with you. I'll show it to you here. I'll also link to it so you can read it as you're crafting yours in case it's helpful. I wrote, we are reopening on Monday. we've been researching the guidelines. To that end, we've introduced strict safety and screening and cleaning protocols. What's different? And I highlighted the key points. Here's book your appointment today. We can't wait to see you, right? So that's what I chose to write. You don't want it to be too long-winded. You want it to be thorough and let them know they're safe and that you're reopened, but you also don't drone on and on forever. Do you know how many emails people are getting about COVID? And it gets old. So try to keep it short and sweet. For my reopening Instagram post, I chose just a photo, and then I said, kind of the same thing. We've been researching the guidelines. We're introducing strict protocols. We're so excited to see you. So I didn't go into the details of my protocols here. I just said, basically you're in good hands. We've been researching this and we're taking it seriously. And we have new protocols and we're so excited to see you. So that was that in post. Okay. Then, and hopefully with that, when that email goes out to your patients, hopefully your schedule gets booked up, right? And that your patients are like, oh my gosh, yeah, you're open. And they schedule with you, right? Without you having to make a bunch of phone calls. The next thing I recommend doing is creating a video walking people through your new policies. Just do this on your cell phone, share it on social media. You can also think about sending another email out with it and putting it on your website, even if you wanted to, depending on, your relationship with social media. But again, keep this video short and sweet if possible. Don't drone on and on about all the boring ins and outs of all your new policies. But the point is to, again, let them know, here's what to expect, and here's how seriously we're taking this, and let them know they're safe and ease their mind, and also walk them through any uncertainties. So here's I shared it on social media. It's almost just under 2 minutes.
I'm going to show you a little.
Let's see, showing my hand sanitizer. I'm going to speed it up.
If you wait, if you come early so the patients don't overlap here.
Let's see, letting them know I'm going to take their temperature, the form they're going to have to sign, and then I show how we're cleaning the treatment tables. Okay, I don't want to bore you with all 2 minutes of that, but I'll share the link if you do want to see the full video. So again, the goal is to ease people's mind and let them know that they'd be safe to come see you, right? The next step is and you could do this even, a week after you opened, right? You don't have to do it before you open. I'm choosing to kind of keep reminding people with my social media, to post little videos of me spraying things down, and just to keep reminding people we were taking this seriously and we're cleaning things and you're safe with us. Okay, not just upon reopening, but ongoing. The next thing I want to remind you of is to be careful of your language around COVID. If you're doing any promotions about immune boosting or relieving COVID symptoms, just know that the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, is cracking down on holistic health practitioners who are making claims about treating COVID. I know somebody, a friend of mine, got a letter from the FTC for a blog post she wrote about treating COVID, and she complied. What scares me is that she complied and changed her language at their request, but then 2 weeks later got a letter from the Department of Justice of her state, from Oregon. And even though she complied with the first complaint, and she's had to hire a lawyer, and it's kind of been a nightmare, right? So it sucks because we have a lot to offer. But just if you're writing blog posts and putting anything on the internet, be conscientious about the language. You don't want to make any big claims about treating or preventing COVID. You can write about it, but you have to make sure you're going along with what the CDC recommends, like hand washing and social distancing. And you have to make it clear that your recommendations are not proven necessarily. even though there is research coming out of China about Chinese herbal formulas and COVID. So it's frustrating, but I just want to give you a heads up about that. Okay. And the next thing is, so those are the 10 steps to reopening with some resources. The next thing I just want to remind you of is to be kind to yourself. This has been a really draining few months. It's just been like heavy and a lot and like feels constant. And we're holding space for the world right now. And it's okay if you don't want to go back to the same busy pace as before. I personally am grappling with this, where I'm like, I don't know that I want to go back to seeing like being double booked constantly without a lunch break, like 15 patients a day. Yeah, that sounds, I feel like I want to take some things I learned from the stay-at-home slowdown and yin time and bring some of that forward. So that's my personal experience. But I also, the few days I've been in clinic this week, I also find a slower pace at work a little draining too, which I'm surprised about. So I'm sort of grappling with this. I think that all the downtime, the 30 minutes of downtime, is kind of boring and draining. And I might rather go into the office and go. And I also don't feel up for the same pace as before. So I don't know. I haven't figured it out. But I want you to be kind to yourself too. And through all this, do the research, but also remember to run it through your own body and heart too. Okay, I hope this is helpful. Thank you so much for being here. Let's see, I'll come back and talk to you. I will link to those resources. And let me know if you have any questions, and best of luck. And just don't forget that the world does need us. The world does need you. And it does, I should say, it feels amazing to be back at work this week. It feels so good to be with my patients. And a few weeks ago, as I was thinking about reopening, I feel like I said foolish things like, I don't even want to reopen if I can't see my patients smile. I was really worried about wearing a mask all day and being able to really connect with my patients through a mask. And it really has not been bad. I've totally been able to still connect with people with a mask. And it felt scary, not scary, but just kind of overwhelming to create whole new policies and procedures and all these new things to wipe down and sanitize but honestly, it's really not bad once you get into it. It's just like driving a car. How at first when you were 15 learning to drive a car, you were like, oh my God, and it was so scary to go on the highway and there were so many things to think about, but then you get used to it and it's just you don't even have to think about all those things, right? It just happens. So it gets easier. It's really not bad. And I've also been thinking about how maybe I even benefit from the treatments I give. I feel honestly energetically better being back at work and doing acupuncture on people and getting to serve and feeling in touch with my purpose. So it's been really great. Surprisingly better than I thought, because I was nervous about it. So I hope this helps, and big hugs to you guys. Thanks.